The last stand. The sky above New Terra burned. Commander Sarah Chen squinted through the cracked viewport of her battered starfighter, watching as another human cruiser erupted in a silent explosion. Debris scattered across the inky void, joining the ever-growing cloud of wreckage that had once been humanity's last line of defense. "Raptor Squadron, form up on me," Sarah barked into her comm. "We've got to buy the evacuation ships more time." A chorus of affirmatives crackled back, tinged with exhaustion and fear. Sarah couldn't blame them. They'd been fighting for 72 hours straight, ever since the swarm had broken through the outer system defenses. New Terra was humanity's final stronghold, the last refuge after Earth and a dozen colony worlds had fallen. If it was lost, so was the human race. Sarah gunned her engines, leading her Ractic squadron towards the massive swarm mothership that loomed at the edge of the battle. The alien vessel was a grotesque amalgamation of organic and mechanical parts, looking more like a colossal insect than a spaceship. Its surface bristled with weapon emplacements and launch bays, disgorging endless waves of dart-like fighter craft. "Target those fighter bays," Sarah ordered. "If we can stem the tide, maybe our capital ships can punch through." The human fighters dove into the fray, pulse lasers blazing. Sarah's targeting computer chirped a lock, and she unleashed a barrage of missiles. They streaked towards one of the swarm's launch bays, detonating in a satisfying chain of explosions. For a moment, the flow of enemy fighters slackened. But it was only a moment. Fresh swarms poured from a dozen other bays, enveloping Sarah's squadron in a cloud of hostiles. Alarms blared as enemy fire peppered her shields. "Evasive maneuvers," she shouted, jinking hard to port. A swarm fighter flashed past, so close she could see the insectoid pilot in its cockpit. Sarah snap-rolled, bringing her guns to bear, and reduced the alien craft to vapor. Two more of her pilots weren't so lucky. Their death cries cut off abruptly as their ships disappeared from her tactical display. "Fall back," Sarah ordered, heart pounding. "We can't." A new alarm cut her off. Sarah's eyes widened as she saw the source. The swarm mothership was powering up its main gun. The massive weapon began to glow with sickly green energy, and Sarah knew with horrible certainty what its target would be. "All ships, break off," she screamed into the general comm channel. "They're targeting the evac fleet." But it was too late. The swarm weapon discharged, a lance of coherent energy that split the night. It struck the lead evacuation ship dead center, vaporizing it instantly. The blast continued on, catching two more ships in its path before dissipating. Sarah's stomach lurched. Those ships had been packed with civilians, the last remnants of humanity, their final hope for survival. And in an instant, they were gone. "No," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "No, no, no." Her sensor board lit up with new contacts. Sarah's heart leaped, thinking reinforcements had somehow arrived. But as the new arrivals resolved on her screen, she realized they weren't human ships at all. They were something else entirely. Sleek, angular vessels of gleaming silver streaked into the battle, their designs unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. They moved with impossible speed and grace, dancing between swarm fighters and capital ships alike. Lances of brilliant energy speared from the newcomers, each shot finding its mark with unerring precision. "This is Admiral Zara of the Asterian fleet." A melodious female voice rang out on all frequencies. "We offer aid to the people of Earth. Fall back and regroup. We will handle the swarm." Sarah blinked in disbelief. Aliens, but aliens that wanted to help. It seemed too good to be true. And yet, as she watched, the newcomers tore through the swarm's forces like they were made of paper. "All human vessels, comply with the Asterian directive," came the voice of Fleet Admiral Reeves, supreme commander of what was left of Earth's forces. "I repeat, fall back and regroup. Let's not look a gift horse in the mouth." Sarah swallowed hard, then keyed her squadron comm. "You heard the order. Form up on me. We're bugging out." As her battered fighters limped away from the battle, Sarah couldn't tear her eyes from the tactical display. The Asterian ships moved in perfect coordination, herding swarm vessels into killing zones and ruthlessly exploiting every weakness. It was like watching an elaborate dance of destruction. The swarm mothership, moments ago so terrifying, now seemed to flounder under the Asterian assault. Precision strikes disabled its weapon emplacements one by one. Smaller craft swarmed its launch bays, sealing them shut with some kind of energy field. And then, with a final concentrated barrage, the Asterians struck at the mothership's core. The massive vessel shuddered, secondary explosions rippling along its length. In a final cataclysmic blast, the swarm flagship split apart. A ragged cheer went up over the human comm channels. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had done it. The impossible had happened. Humanity had been saved, quite literally at the last possible moment. As the Asterian ships began to disengage, a new transmission came through. Attention human vessels. We request a delegation to meet with us aboard our flagship. We have much to discuss regarding the future of your species. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. They had been saved, yes, but at what cost? And what did these Asterians truly want? Hours later, Sarah found herself aboard the Asterian flagship, part of a hastily assembled human delegation. Fleet Admiral Reeves stood at the fore, with Sarah and a handful of other military and civilian leaders arrayed behind him. They waited in a cavernous, gleaming chamber that seemed to be equal parts throne room and command center. A set of massive doors slid open, and Sarah's jaw dropped. The Asterians strode in, and they were not what she had expected. They were all female, for one thing. Tall, statuesque women with skin in shades of bronze and gold. Their hair came in a rainbow of vibrant colors, and their eyes gleamed with an inner light. Each moved with the fluid grace of a born warrior, and the air seemed to shimmer around them with barely contained power. At their head walked the most regal being Sarah had ever seen. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, with flowing silver hair and eyes like molten gold. A circlet of some iridescent metal adorned her brow. "I am Queen Lyra of the Asterian Dominion," she announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber. "We welcome you aboard our vessel." Admiral Reeves stepped forward and bowed slightly. "On behalf of humanity, I thank you for your timely intervention. I am Fleet Admiral Jonathan Reeves. May I ask, why did you choose to aid us?" Queen Lyra's lips curved in a slight smile. "We have been observing your conflict with the swarm for some time, Admiral. Your species has shown remarkable tenacity in the face of overwhelming odds. It would be a shame to see such potential snuffed out." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the human delegation. When her eyes met Sarah's, the pilot felt a jolt, as if she'd been struck by lightning. "There is, however, another reason," Queen Lyra continued. "My people face a crisis of our own, a genetic stagnation that threatens our very existence. We believe that human DNA may hold the key to our salvation, and that, in turn, we can offer humanity the means to not only survive, but to thrive among the stars." Admiral Reeves frowned. "I'm not sure I understand. What exactly are you proposing?" Queen Lyra's smile widened. "An alliance, Admiral. But more than that, a merging of our peoples. You see, the Asterians are an all-female species. We require genetic material from compatible races to reproduce. And we believe that humans, or at least certain exceptional humans, may possess the strongest, most suitable genes in the galaxy." A murmur ran through the human delegation. Sarah felt her face grow hot as the implications sank in. "You want to breed with us?" Admiral Reeves asked, his composure slipping for the first time. "In a manner of speaking, yes," Queen Lyra replied. "But do not misunderstand. This would be a partnership of equals. We offer you advanced technology, the protection of our fleets, and a place among the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. In exchange, we ask for volunteers, your best and brightest, to help inject new vitality into our gene pool." She stepped forward, her gaze intense. What say you, humans? Will you join us in forging a new future for both our peoples? Admiral Reeves turned to confer quietly with the other human leaders. Sarah's mind raced. It was an incredible offer, salvation and advancement beyond their wildest dreams. But at what cost? And could they trust these Astarians, no matter how benevolent they seemed? As if sensing her thoughts, Queen Lyra's eyes found Sarah once more. "You pilot," she said. "I sense great strength in you. What do you think of our proposal?" Sarah swallowed hard, suddenly aware that every eye in the room was upon her. She squared her shoulders and met the Astarian queen's gaze. "With all due respect, Your Majesty," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "While we're grateful for your help, this is a monumental decision, one that will affect the entire human race. We can't just jump into it blindly." Queen Lyra nodded, looking pleased. "A wise answer. We do not expect an immediate response. Take time to consider our offer. But know this, the galaxy is vast and full of wonders and terrors. You have seen firsthand what the swarm can do. There are other threats out there, equally dire. Humanity will need allies if it is to survive and prosper." Admiral Reeves stepped forward once more. "We appreciate your understanding, Queen Lyra. We will need time to consult with our remaining leadership and to fully understand what you're offering. But speaking personally, I believe this could be the dawn of a new era for humanity." As the human delegation filed out to return to their ships, Sarah's head spun. In the span of a day, they had gone from the brink of extinction to being offered a place among the stars. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into something far bigger and more complex than they realized. One thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. Unexpected allies. The days following humanity's near extinction and subsequent rescue by the Astarians were a blur of activity. Sarah found herself thrust into a central role in the negotiations, had a status as a decorated fighter pilot, and her brief interaction with Queen Lyra, making her a natural liaison between the two species. As she stood on the observation deck of the massive Astarian mothership, Sarah marveled at the fleet of silver vessels surrounding them. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, sleek and deadly, yet possessing an otherworldly beauty. "Impressive, aren't they?" a voice said behind her. Sarah turned to see Zara, the Astarian admiral who had led the rescue fleet. Up close, the alien woman was even more striking, tall and lithe, with deep blue skin and hair that seemed to shimmer with starlight. "They're incredible," Sarah admitted. "I've never seen anything like them." Zara smiled, a gesture that was both familiar and alien on her features. "Our ships are a reflection of our people, beautiful but deadly when necessary. Much like you humans, I'm beginning to realize." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "You've been studying us." "Of course," Zara replied. "We needed to understand if you were truly compatible, not just genetically, but culturally as well. Your resilience against the swarm was impressive, but there's more to an alliance than just military strength." Sarah nodded, turning back to the view. "And what have you concluded?" Zara was silent for a moment. "That you're a fascinating species, full of contradictions, capable of great violence, yet also great compassion. Technologically advanced in some ways, but still struggling in others. You have potential, Sarah Chen, more than you realize." Before Sarah could respond, her comm unit beeped. Admiral Ree's voice came through, terse and urgent. "Commander Chen, report to the conference room immediately. The Astarian Council is ready to present their full proposal." Sarah exchanged a glance with Zara, who nodded. "It seems our future is about to be decided, shall we?" The conference room was packed when they arrived. The human delegation, consisting of military leaders, scientists, and what remained of Earth's government, sat on one side. The Astarians, resplendent in their shimmering attire, occupied the other. At the head of the table stood Queen Lyra, her presence commanding attention without a word. As Sarah took her seat, Queen Lyra began to speak. "Honored representatives of Earth, we have carefully considered how best to proceed with our alliance. What we propose is not merely a military pact or a scientific exchange, but a true merging of our peoples." She gestured, and a holographic display sprang to life above the table. It showed a sprawling city unlike anything Sarah had ever seen, gleaming spires and lush gardens, with humans and Asterians walking side by side. "We offer you a home," Lyra continued. "Not just refuge, but a chance to rebuild and thrive. Our world, Astoria Prime, has more than enough room for your remaining population. We will share our technology, our knowledge, and our resources." Admiral Reeves leaned forward, and in return, "What exactly do you want from us?" Lyra's gaze swept the room. As we explained before, the Asterian race faces a genetic crisis. Our population is declining, our children growing weaker with each generation. We believe that human DNA holds the key to our rejuvenation. She paused, letting the words sink in. "We propose a selective breeding program. The strongest, smartest, and most genetically diverse humans would be paired with Asterian partners. The children of these unions would inherit the best traits of both species, human adaptability and creativity combined with Asterian strength and longevity." A murmur ran through the human delegation. Sarah felt a mix of fascination and unease. It sounded almost too good to be true, and in her experience, things that seemed too good to be true usually were. Dr. Emily Saito, Earth's leading geneticist, spoke up. "This is fascinating from a scientific perspective, but have you considered the ethical implications? You're talking about creating an entirely new species." Queen Lyra nodded. "We have indeed. That is why participation would be entirely voluntary. No human would be forced to take part. Those who choose not to would still be welcome on Astoria Prime, with full rights and protections." "And what of the children?" Sarah found herself asking. Would they be considered human, Asterian, something else entirely? "They would be the future," Lyra replied, her voice resonating with conviction. "A bridge between our peoples, and the key to surviving the challenges that lie ahead." The room fell silent as everyone digested the magnitude of what was being proposed. It wasn't just an alliance, it was the potential rebirth of humanity as something new, something more than they had ever been. Admiral Reeves cleared his throat. "This is a lot to take in. We'll need time to discuss and to put it to a vote among our remaining population." Queen Lyra inclined her head. "Of course, we understand the gravity of this decision. Take the time you need. But know that the offer stands only as long as we remain in this sector. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and we cannot linger indefinitely." As the meeting adjourned, Sarah's mind whirled. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. A chance for humanity to not just survive, but to evolve into something greater. But at what cost? And could they truly trust the Astarians, no matter how benevolent they seemed? Over the next few days, debates raged among the human survivors. Some saw the Astarian offer as their only hope for survival. Others feared it was a trap, or worse, the extinction of humanity by other means. Sarah found herself torn. As a soldier, she understood the tactical advantages of such an alliance. The Asterian technology alone could revolutionize their defenses against threats like the Swarm. But as a human, the idea of fundamentally changing their species gave her pause. She was mulling over these thoughts in the ship's gymnasium when Zara approached her again. The Asterian admiral watched as Sarah pummeled a punching bag, her movements a blur of controlled aggression. "You're troubled," Zara observed. Sarah paused, wiping sweat from her brow. "Wouldn't you be? Your people are asking us to change everything about ourselves." Zara's expression softened. "Change can be frightening, but it can also be necessary for survival. My people faced extinction once, long ago. We made hard choices then, just as you must now." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Zara sighed, her eyes distant. "The Asterians weren't always as you see us now. Once, we were not so different from humans, two genders, reproducing naturally. But a great cataclysm struck our world. Our males were wiped out, and those of us who survived were changed. She gestured to herself. This form, our abilities, they're the result of desperate genetic manipulation by our ancestors. We saved our species, but at a cost. Now, after millennia, that cost has caught up with us. Sarah absorbed this, seeing the Astarians in a new light. So you're not just looking for an alliance, you're looking for salvation. Zara nodded. As are you. Perhaps that is why our paths have crossed at this moment in history. Before Sarah could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Both women tensed, years of military training kicking in. Report. Zara barked into her comm unit. A panicked voice came through. Multiple hostile contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. It's the swarm. They found us. Sarah's blood ran cold. They weren't ready for this. The human fleet was still in shambles, and they hadn't had time to integrate any Astarian technology. Zara's eyes met Sarah's, a silent understanding passing between them. Whatever doubts they had, whatever debates were ongoing, none of it mattered now. They were about to face extinction once again. As they raced toward the bridge, Sarah realized that the true test of this fledgling alliance was about to begin. Humanity and Astarians would fight side by side, or perish together. The future of both species hung in the balance, and the battle for survival was about to begin anew. Trials of fire. The bridge of the Astarian flagship erupted into controlled chaos as Sarah and Zara burst through the doors. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the approaching swarm fleet, a seething mass of biomechanical horrors that blotted out the stars. Queen Lyra stood at the center of it all, her regal composure unshaken. Status report, she commanded. 37 swarm hive ships detected, Your Majesty, an Astarian officer reported. Accompanied by countless fighter swarms, they'll be in weapons range in less than 10 minutes. Sarah's mind raced. Even with the Astarians' advanced technology, they were severely outnumbered. The remnants of Earth's fleet were in no condition for another major battle. We need to evacuate, Admiral Reeves said, his face grim. Get our people to the escape pods. Try to scatter. No, Queen Lyra interrupted, her voice steel. We will not run. We will not abandon your people again, Admiral. This ends here. She turned to Sarah, her golden eyes blazing. Commander Chen, you faced the swarm before. What weaknesses can we exploit? Sarah swallowed hard, feeling the weight of both species' survival on her shoulders. The hive ships, she said. They're the command and control centers. If we can take them out, the smaller units become disorganized. Zara nodded. Our main cannons should be able to penetrate their shields, but we'd need to get close, dangerously close. Then that's what we'll do, Lyra declared. She turned to Admiral Reeves. Can your remaining fighters provide cover for our capital ships? Reeves hesitated, then nodded. It'll be a suicide mission, but yes, we can do it. Not suicide, Sarah interjected. A fighting chance. For all of us, she met Lyra's gaze. I volunteer to lead the fighter screen. A small smile touched the Astarian Queen's lips. I had a feeling you might. Very well, Commander Chen. Show us what humanity is truly capable of. The next few minutes were a blur of activity. Sarah raced to the hangar bay, where both human and Astarian pilots scrambled to their fighters. To her surprise, she found Zara climbing into the cockpit next to her own. I thought admirals stayed on the bridge, Sarah quipped. Zara grinned, a fierce light in her eyes. Not Astarian admirals. We lead from the front. As the hangar bay doors opened, revealing the star-studded void beyond, Sarah felt a surge of something. Not quite hope, but determination. They might not survive this, but by the stars, they would make the swarm regret ever crossing paths with this newfound alliance. All fighters, form up on me, Sarah called over the comm. Remember, our job is to clear a path for the capital ships. Stay tight, stay focused, and watch each other's backs. With a roar of engines, the combined human-Asterian fighter force launched into space. Zara's hands tightened on the controls of her battered Earth starfighter, acutely aware of the sleek Asterian vessel flying in perfect formation beside her. The swarm fighters met them halfway, a whirling cloud of chitin and metal. Zara's targeting computer screamed warnings as enemy craft locked onto her. "Brake and engage," she shouted, rolling her fighter into a tight spiral. Pulse lasers lashed out, catching a swarm craft and reducing it to vapor. All around her, the void erupted in furious combat. Human pilots, hardened by years of desperate warfare, fought with reckless courage. Asterian fighters danced through the chaos with impossible grace, their advanced weapons carving swaths through the enemy ranks. Zara found herself wing to wing with Zara, the two of them moving in perfect sync. They dove and weaved through the battle, covering each other's blind spots, combining their fire to devastating effect. "We're actually pushing them back," Zara said, a note of wonder in her voice. But Zara knew it couldn't last. For every swarm fighter they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. Slowly but surely, the Ally forces were being worn down. "Mayday, Mayday," a panicked voice cut across the comm. "This is the EDS Defiant. Our engines are hit. We're drifting into the kill zone." Zara's heart clenched. The Defiant was one of the last human cruisers, packed with civilians they hadn't had time to evacuate. If it fell... "Zara, cover me," she snapped, banking hard toward the stricken vessel. Swarm fighters swarmed around the Defiant, peppering its failing shields with plasma fire. Zara dove into their midst, guns blazing. 2 enemy craft exploded, then 3, but there were too many. A blinding flash lit up her cockpit as a plasma bolt slammed into her fighter's wing. Alarms blared as systems failed across the board. Zara's voice crackled through the damaged comm. "Get out of there." But Zara grit her teeth, ignoring the smoke filling her cockpit. The Defiant was almost clear, just a few more seconds. Suddenly, a massive shadow fell over her fighter. Zara looked up to see the bulk of an Asterian capital ship passing overhead, its point defense guns blazing. Swarm fighters scattered before its onslaught. "This is Queen Lyra," a familiar voice rang out on all frequencies. "All ships, fall back and regroup. We're taking the fight to the hive ships." Zara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. They had a chance. A slim one, but a chance nonetheless. As she limped her crippled fighter back toward the Asterian fleet, Zara watched in awe as the massive vessels surged forward. Their main guns, glowing with barely contained energy, fired as one. The space between the fleets lit up like a newborn sun. When the glare faded, Zara saw 3 swarm hive ships drifting in pieces. A ragged cheer went up over the Allied comm channels, but Zara knew the battle was far from over. The remaining hive ships were adapting, their biomechanical forms shifting to present smaller targets. "All fighters, rearm and refuel," Lyra's voice came again. "We've bloodied their nose, but the real fight is just beginning." As Zara guided her battered craft into the hangar bay, she caught sight of Zara's fighter landing nearby. The Asterian admiral climbed out, her expression a mix of exhilaration and concern. "That was some flying out there," Zara said as she approached. "But you took an insane risk for that cruiser." Zara shrugged, wincing at the movement. She was pretty sure she'd cracked a rib or two in that last exchange. "They're my people. I couldn't just let them die." Zara's expression softened. "No, I suppose you couldn't. It's that spirit that made us choose your species, you know. That willingness to sacrifice for others." Before Zara could respond, a thunderous impact rocked the entire ship. Klaxons began to wail. "Attention all hands," a voice boomed over the intercom. "Multiple hull breaches detected. Sworn boarding parties have penetrated our defenses. All combat personnel report to your designated defense stations immediately." Sarah and Zara exchanged a grim look. The battle for survival had just become a lot more personal. "I hope you're as good with a blaster as you are with a fighter," Zara said, drawing a sleek energy weapon from her hip. Sarah managed a tight smile, checking the charge on her own sidearm. "Guess we're about to find out." As they raced toward the nearest breach point, Sarah couldn't help but feel a grim sort of irony. Here they were, humans and Astarians, fighting side by side against a common foe. Perhaps this, more than any treaty or breeding program, would forge the bonds between their species. If they survived, of course, but Sarah had no intention of dying today. Not when the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. With Zara at her side and determination burning in her heart, she prepared to face whatever horrors a swarm would throw at them next. The true test of their alliance was about to begin. Crucible of unity. The corridors of the Astarian flagship echoed with the sounds of battle. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, punctuated by the inhuman screeches of swarm warriors and the defiant shouts of the defenders. Sarah and Zara moved in perfect sync, covering each other as they advanced towards the main breach point. "How are you holding up, flyboy?" Zara called over her shoulder, her energy weapon dropping another swarm drone. Sarah grinned despite the dire situation, still breathing. "You Astarians should know how to throw a welcome party." They rounded a corner and came face to face with a group of human marines, their backs to the wall as they fended off a swarm of chitinous horrors. Sarah's heart swelled with pride at their tenacity, even as she realized how overmatched they were. "Covering fire," she shouted, unleashing a barrage from her blaster. The swarm drones turned, momentarily confused by the new threat. It was all the opening Zara needed. The Astarian admiral's form blurred as she charged forward, moving faster than Sarah's eyes could track. Her energy blade flashed, cutting through swarm armor like tissue paper. In seconds, the hallway was clear. "Holy shit," one of the Marines breathed, staring at Zara in awe. "I've never seen anyone move like that." Zara offered a tight smile. "Astarian combat training. Perhaps we can arrange some joint exercises after we survive this, yes." A distant explosion rocked the ship, reminding them all of the precarious situation. Sarah's comm crackled to life. "This is Queen Lyra. The swarm have breached the engineering deck. If they sabotage our main reactor, we're finished. All available units converge on that location immediately." Sarah and Zara exchanged a grim look. "You heard her, Marines," Sarah barked. "Let's move out." As they raced through the ship's winding corridors, Sarah marveled at how seamlessly the human and Astarian forces were working together. There was no time for prejudice or mistrust in the heat of battle. Survival depended on cooperation. They burst onto the engineering deck to find it in chaos. Astarian technicians fought desperately alongside human engineers, using improvised weapons to hold off the swarm invaders. At the center of it all stood Queen Lyra herself, her regal gown torn and scorched, wielding what looked like a staff of pure energy. "About time you joined us, Commander," Lyra called out, her voice strained but still commanding. "We can't let them reach the reactor core." Sarah assessed the situation quickly. The swarm were pressing in from multiple angles, using their superior numbers to overwhelm the defenders. But there was a pattern to their movements, a method to their madness. "They're being directed," she realized aloud. "There must be a swarm commander nearby, coordinating the attack." Zara nodded, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "If we can take it out, the rest will lose cohesion." "Easier said than done," Sarah muttered. Then her eyes widened as she spotted something. A larger swarm creature, partially hidden behind a bank of machinery, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. There. Without hesitation, Sarah charged forward, dodging plasma bolts and slashing claws. She heard Zara shout her name, but there was no time to explain. This was their one shot at turning the tide. The swarm commander saw her coming. It reared up, easily twice her height, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Sarah raised her blaster, knowing it would be woefully inadequate against the creature's armored hide. But she never got the chance to fire. A blur of motion swept past her, and suddenly Zara was there, her energy blade plunging deep into the swarm commander's thorax. The creature let out an ear-splitting shriek, thrashing wildly. "Sarah, now!" Zara yelled, struggling to maintain her grip on the blade. Without hesitation, Sarah leaped onto the creature's back, pressing her blaster against a weak point in its armor. She emptied the entire power cell into it, not stopping until the swarm commander collapsed in a smoking heap. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then, as one, the remaining swarm drones began to falter, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. The Allied forces pressed their advantage, and within minutes, the engineering deck was secure. As the last echoes of battle faded, Sarah found herself face to face with Queen Lyra. The Asterian monarch looked battered but unbowed, her golden eyes shining with an emotion Sarah couldn't quite name. "Well fought, Commander Chen," Lyra said softly. "You've proven yourself a true warrior today." Sarah shook her head. "It wasn't just me. We all fought together. Humans, Asterians. I've never seen anything like it." Lyra's lips curved in a small smile. "Perhaps this is the silver lining to the swarm's attack. Our peoples have been forged together in the crucible of battle. Bonds like these are not easily broken." Before Sarah could respond, Admiral Ree's voice came over the comm. "Your Majesty, Commander Chen, you need to get to the bridge immediately. The battle in space, it's taken an unexpected turn." Exchanging concerned glances, the trio made their way to the command center. As they entered, Sarah's jaw dropped at the sight on the main view screen. The space around them was littered with the broken husks of swarm ships, but it wasn't the Asterian fleet that had dealt the killing blow. A new armada had arrived, sleek, predatory vessels of a design Sarah had never seen before. "Who are they?" she breathed. Queen Lyra's expression was unreadable. Old friends and old enemies, the Zarkin Imperium. "It seems our little skirmish has attracted some very powerful attention." As if on cue, the view screen flickered, revealing a being that seemed to be made of living crystal. Its voice resonated directly in Sarah's mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "Greetings, Queen Lyra of the Astarians. Greetings, humans of Earth. We have observed your valor in battle and find it intriguing. Perhaps it is time for the younger races to take their place on the galactic stage." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had a feeling that the battle against the swarm was just the beginning. The true test of their newfound alliance and humanity's place in the cosmos was yet to come. As she looked around at the determined faces of both humans and Astarians, Sarah allowed herself a glimmer of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And just maybe, they would forge a future brighter than either species had ever dreamed possible. Galactic diplomacy. The arrival of the Zarkin Imperium had changed everything. What had begun as a desperate battle for survival had suddenly become a complex dance of interstellar politics. Sarah found herself thrust into the center of it all, her unique position as a bridge between humans and Astarians, making her an invaluable asset in the negotiations that followed. The crystalline beings of the Zarkin were as inscrutable as they were powerful. Their massive ships dwarfed even the Astarian vessels, bristling with weaponry beyond human comprehension. Yet they spoke of peace, of a desire to elevate the younger races to a position of galactic importance. "We have watched your kind for centuries," the Zarkin ambassador explained, its multifaceted form shimmering as it addressed the assembled leaders. Humans, with their tenacity and adaptability. Astarians, with their grace and technological prowess. Together, you represent a new hope for our troubled galaxy. Queen Lyra's eyes narrowed. "And what, precisely, troubles our galaxy that would require our intervention?" The ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with what Sarah interpreted as concern. "The swarm you faced was but a fraction of a greater threat. An ancient evil stirs in the dark between stars, one that nearly wiped out our own civilization eons ago. We believe that only through unity can we hope to face what comes." Admiral Reeves leaned forward, his expression skeptical. "So you're proposing what, exactly? An alliance?" "More than that," the ambassador replied. "We propose to sponsor your races for full membership in the Galactic Confederation. With our backing, you would have access to technologies and resources beyond your wildest dreams. In return, we ask only that you stand with us against the coming darkness." The negotiations stretched on for days. Sarah found herself shuttling between human, Astarian, and Zarkin delegations, translating not just words, but intentions and cultural nuances. It was exhausting, exhilarating work. Through it all, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something monumental. The decisions made here would shape the destiny of not just humanity, but multiple species across the cosmos. As the talks neared their conclusion, Sarah stood alone on an observation deck, gazing out at the star-studded void. She felt a presence behind her and turned to see Zara approaching. "Credit for your thoughts, Commander," the Astarian admiral asked softly. Sarah sighed. "Just trying to wrap my head around it all. A few weeks ago, I was fighting what I thought was humanity's last stand. Now we're talking about joining some galactic federation. It's a lot to process." Zara nodded, her expression understanding. "Change is never easy, especially on this scale. But think of the opportunities, Sarah. The wonders we could discover together, the good we could do. And the dangers we'll face," Sarah added grimly. "True," Zara conceded. "But isn't that what drew you to the stars in the first place? The challenge, the unknown." Sarah couldn't help but smile. "When you put it that way, yeah, I suppose it is." As they stood there, watching distant suns twinkle, Sarah felt a sense of possibility wash over her. Whatever came next, they would face it together, humans and Astarians, united in purpose and spirit. A new dawn. The day of the signing ceremony dawned bright and clear. The Astarian flagship had been transformed, its vast hangar bay converted into a grand assembly hall. Representatives from Earth, Astoria Prime, and the Zarkin Imperium gathered to witness the birth of a new era. Sarah stood at attention, her dress uniform crisp and spotless, as Queen Lyra and Admiral Reeves approached the central dais. The Zarkin ambassador hovered nearby, its crystalline form refracting the light in dazzling patterns. "Today," Queen Lyra began, her voice carrying easily through the cavernous space, "we stand on the threshold of a new age. An age of cooperation, of shared purpose and mutual prosperity." Admiral Reeves nodded solemnly. "Humanity has always dreamed of reaching the stars. We never imagined we'd find such steadfast allies when we got here." As the leaders spoke, Sarah's gaze drifted across the assembled crowd. Humans and Astarians stood side by side, their differences apparent, but no longer a source of division. She saw hope in their eyes and determination. The treaty was comprehensive. It outlined not just military cooperation, but scientific and cultural exchange programs. The Astarian breeding proposal had been modified, turned into a voluntary genetic research initiative aimed at benefiting both species. Earth would be rebuilt, with Astarian and Zarkin technology accelerating its recovery from the swarm invasion. As Queen Lyra, Admiral Reeves, and the Zarkin ambassador signed the document, a cheer went up from the assembled crowd. Sarah felt her heart swell with pride and possibility. The celebration that followed was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. Humans and Astarians mingled freely, sharing stories and dreams of the future. Even the normally aloof Zarkins seemed to be enjoying themselves, their crystalline forms pulsing with vibrant colors. As the party wound down, Sarah found herself once again on the observation deck. This time she was joined not just by Zara, but by Queen Lyra and Admiral Reeves as well. "So, Commander Chen," Reeves said with a smile, "ready for your new assignment?" Sarah blinked in surprise. "Sir?" Queen Lyra's eyes twinkled with amusement. We've decided to create a joint task force, the best and brightest of both our peoples, working together to prepare for the challenges ahead. We'd like you to lead it." "Me," Sarah stammered. "But surely there are more qualified." Zara laid a hand on her shoulder. "There's no one more qualified, Sarah. You've proven yourself in battle, in diplomacy, and in bringing our peoples together. You're the perfect choice." Sarah looked at each of them in turn, seeing the confidence in their eyes. Slowly she nodded. "I'd be honored." As the others drifted away, Sarah turned back to the viewport. The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of promise and potential. Whatever threats lurked in the darkness, whatever wonders awaited discovery, she knew that they would face them united. Human and Astarian, standing together against the tide of history. It wasn't the future Sarah had imagined for herself, but as she gazed out at the infinite expanse of space, she couldn't imagine wanting anything else. The adventure was just beginning. End of story.